And now, it's time for another Dice Tower review with Tom Vasel.
Hey folks, AEG put out a great game years ago called Guildhall, and then they put out a second one called Guildhall Job Fair. Well, now they've released Guildhall Fantasy, which is 3 small sets so far. I would imagine maybe there's more coming, but 3 small sets that they're releasing over. There's one that came out this month, and then one next month, and then one month after that about. And there's also this Guildhall box of holding, and this holds all the different sets in one big box. And I'm going to show you that in a second, but I'm also going to talk about mixing the sets and what I feel about that in this video. So I didn't talk about that in those particular videos. I'm not actually talking about Guildhall specifically, how to play it, my thoughts on that game itself. You can see that in those 3 videos where I've taken a look at each of the new Guildhall fantasies. But here I'm talking specifically to, do you want this box of holding? What do you do when you mix them together? And if you already own Guildhall and or Job Fair, is it worth getting these? Let's find out. So the Guildhall Fantasy box of holding, when you open it up, has room to put all 3 of the Guildhall fantasies in it. So we have Coalition, Alliance, and Fellowship, plus this white box here, which is nothing. I was like, oh, what secrets are in it? There's nothing in it. So they all fit in there, and it makes me think, just for people who are OCD, possibly, that there will eventually be a 4th one. But you can put all these together. This box is a decent size, and I personally like this size of box better to put on my shelf, but again, you can just open one of these up and take it with you. I think you could fit 2 full sets in one of these small boxes if you take out the plastic insert. But either way, this is where the dividers for the game are going to come in handy. You're going to be able to keep all the different characters in behind these dividers and say, okay, I'm going to pull a couple from this set, pull a couple from this set, pull a couple from this set. Let me show you. Okay, so first there's the victory point cards, and the victory point cards for all the sets they're mostly the same, although the 2 and the 3 points and one of the 4-point victory points are different amongst the sets. And so I would just recommend grabbing one of the victory points from one of the sets. Who cares which one? They're not that different, and using it, or mixing all 3 together using one big deck, although then you might get a whole bunch of the same number at the same time. So you're best off just grabbing one. You can even build a custom victory point deck. But of all the things to mix together, I think it's the thing that I like, that I would worry about the least. Now, you're going to want to build a set. Now, if you look at each of these cards, so when we look at, for example, the fighter and the sorcerer here, and we look at the top of that, you'll see some letters up there, and these are going to, and then you'll also see a symbol here. Now, these symbols are important, okay? So the first letter here is going to show you which set these come from. So these here happen to come from the Fellowship. So they're from the Guildhall Fellowship set. The second letter on each of those, the O, stands for Old World Economy, which means this actually matches one of the cards from the original Guildhall game. This symbol here means it's a new one. This isn't in any of the Guildhall games. And then there's another symbol here, the J, which means Job Fair, which means it came from the second Guildhall set. So you can actually take these apart and put them together and play with the original Guildhall. You will need all 3 sets of Guildhall Fantasy to do that, because they scattered them around. The same thing for Job Fair, and you can even play with New Empire, only the 6 new professions. So if you have all 3 Guildhall sets, you could play with Fellowship, Coalition, Alliance, then you could play with Old World Economy, Job Fair, and New Empire. So you have 6 custom-built sets that you can play with. But you can build your own one, and they highly recommend, and I agree, that you have one of each of these symbols. So if you have the Sorcerer, you probably shouldn't use the Warlock in the same set, because they're going to do similar things. For example, in each set, there's one person that gets you victory points. There's one person that lets you draw cards. There's a couple of cards that go after your opponent. You wouldn't want one where every card goes after your opponent, or all, you have 3 of the ones that give you victory points, because that would just make the game a weird thing that you can do. Now, you can do that. That's totally up to you if you want to do it. And you can even go one farther, where they call the Mega Saga, where you mix them from all the different sets together. You're using everything from multiple sets. And when you do that, there's a couple ways to play it. You can play where each, you basically have 18 characters, which is crazy, okay? I highly don't recommend doing that. I played it once with 12, and it was fine. It was good, but everyone needs to know what they're doing. But what they would say instead is, you would sit there, and so let's say you're playing the wizard. Okay, so the wizard, when you play 0 wizards, you get to take one card and draw it from your discard pile into your hand. And then you play a warlock. Well, he goes on the same one because they're both the magic users. They both have that same symbol. And so because there's only one wizard in play already, he would have to use his regular ability. And if I played another warlock, now there are 2 of them in play. And so you kind of play that they're in the same chapter. Now realize that this does up the complexity of the game because there's all these things going around, but you can mix those up. And it says in the rulebook, we recommend only attempting them when you've truly mastered all 3 editions of Guildhall. You can laugh at that, but I do highly recommend that. So anyhow, you can keep all the cards together in one deck. I don't recommend that. I think separating them by their dividers into different sets is fine. It makes it really quick if you look at these symbols at the top and you say, okay, I'm going to quick play with the old ones or with Job Fair or with the new ones. Like I said, essentially then I think that those 6 sets are enough. I don't think you need to build your own custom stuff, but if you really want to, the opportunity is there. So this whole thing is kind of fascinating, right? Because this is essentially a reboot. Yes, there are 6 new characters, but you can't just get those 6 new characters. This doesn't really mesh with the old stuff at all. So let's say you're someone who owns Guildhall and Job Fair, and you're saying, should I get these? I don't know. You can, but it's basically replacing your other stuff. You might as well get rid of the old ones. Maybe you like the new theme better. How does the new theme work? Well, I actually think the symbols in the new one are slightly more confusing than the old ones. It's just a minor thing, not a big thing. And I don't, even though I like fantasy a little bit better than medieval, but I don't think the fantasy theme is like, wow, barbarians and wizards, oh my, it's not that big of a deal. This game is themeless. Now, if you've never played Guildhall before, but you want it, okay, great. Get this, get all 3 sets, have fun, mix them together. Having all 3 sets, like I said, gives you those 6 predetermined sets, and you can mix and match sets and do whatever you want. You already own maybe just one of the Guildhalls. Maybe you own Guildhall or Job Fair. Well, you might want to get a couple of these sets and mix and match them and then get rid of your Job Fair or the original Guildhall. You own both the original and Job Fair. Only get these if you're dying to have 6 more rolls or you like the fantasy theme better. Other than that, you're probably best sticking with your original ones because those mix together too. I do think mixing them and the dividers is a great idea. That addition to this makes this set much better and easier to work with. So if you're new to the series, definitely get it. Love it. You already have Guildhall. You need to consider. Maybe you want to get rid of the old one and upgrade, or stick with your old one and don't feel bad. Although I know there's going to be people who say, I want those 6 new rolls, and it irritates me that I can't get them in one of the boxes, that they're scattered throughout the 3. I feel your pain, and I'm not sure why AEG did that. Maybe they did it deliberately, so you'd have to buy all 3, or maybe they thought that the 3 boxes were more balanced. I'm not really sure in that regard, but either way, we have a new Guildhall for a new generation. In gaming years, generations like 3 or 4 years. Still though, I'm glad Guildhall exists. It exists in a cool format. Even if you don't want this mega box, having these small boxes is really easy to carry around. And again, they made it pretty simple to mix the sets back and forth. Which set should you get first? Probably Fellowship is the best one to get first. Coalition is my favorite, but again, I don't matter. I have an actual mix. I would use most of the cards from Coalition and switch out one of them maybe for one of the cards in another set or something like that. And that's my own personal private set. But I like it. I recommend it. It's up to you though whether you think it's worth replacing the old one. But if you never played before, certainly get at least one of the sets and try it out because it's a lot of fun. Dice Tower Judgment, excellent.
Thanks so much for watching the Dice Tower videos. Find more great videos and reviews as well as our top-rated audio podcast at Dicetower.com. You can also find other great shows at Dicetowernetwork.com. I'm Eric Summerer, and you've been watching The Dice Tower. The Dice Tower is sponsored by Cool Stuff Inc., where you can find great games for great prices. Cool stuff in stock. Check them out at CoolStuffInc.com.
Shut the door!